Non-existent. Did not read.
Never read.
Didn't even think about like picking up books.
I never read anything.
I used to read a bunch in middle school, but I guess high school it gets harder to read because you have no time.
I read only when I had to, so.
That's how I was. I didn't read anything unless I had to for a class or for a grade or a book report.
Spark Notes.
Spark
Yeah.
Notes.
You don't have to know everything about the book. You just have to know a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, you could Spark Notes it, and you could also, I would look up other summaries because teachers are expecting Spark Notes. But
I would
you could basically learn everything
on
they're
like
trying to
I
put.
found a lot of quizzes on there that are the exact same too.
an English one and English two. I could like look over pages and like get like pretty much the main idea, and then like pretty much just like write down a bunch of random stuff and like barely pass. But
I'm a really good skimmer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spark
Yeah,
Notes
learn to
was
take
my way to
notes.
go.
Spark Notes, all right.
I feel like the requirement of reading books is what killed
Yeah.
reading, like killed the love of reading for me.
And like I think it was also that your teacher chooses. Like
Yeah.
a lot of times for me, I can't get into a book that someone else could get into. I have like my own style or my own taste of reading. So it was really hard for me to still love reading after having to go through some tough books for me.
That's how I was. I didn't like reading like towards the end of elementary school through middle school because I always felt like I was compared if I didn't understand it as well as the other kids, or if I found like got something different out of it than all the other kids, and then it just kind of killed it and I was done.
I mean, and some of us are slower readers, and you fall behind, and then you're like, I can't get back ahead, and you just stop.
And
It's like lose-lose.
I also
Yeah.
feel like reading a lot of times in elementary and junior high, you're like, the way you read is classified as a number, like it's a number.
Yeah.
And it's not like how you comprehend the book or how slow you comprehend it. It's your reading
Yeah.
level, and even though your reading level might be low, you read fast or you comprehend better than others, but like you're like put into a category of like how high of a level you can read, and I hated that.
The reading test and reading count stuff.
yeah,
I don't
I
like
got
that.
burnt out on that. They're like, yeah, you guys gotta have like 5 books read by the end of the year, or whatever, in like 3rd grade, and you have to take tests on them, and you have to pass with like a 7 out of 10. Then you're just like stressed. You're like, I gotta read this book, and then I gotta take a test over it, and gotta get a 7 out of 10 on it as a 3rd
And then
grader.
you go take tests, you
Yeah.
forget like most of it.
Whenever I said we're gonna read every day, what was your reaction?
I was like, are you kidding me? I ain't reading this book. I'm just going to sit on my phone.
Uh-huh.
Like, and then once I started reading Bossy Pants, once you handed it to me, it's like, I'm going to read this. And I love Tina Fey, so it's like, I got to do this. I got to read it. And I loved it.
When we started this semester, started reading, I was already in the middle of a book because, I was trying to get back on the track of reading. But, once that book was over, I'm like, okay, what do I read now? And, then you gave me some, recommendations, and that really put me back on track on reading. Even though the books are much bigger than the first book that I read, I felt confident to, just tackle it. And I read, actually, the first book I read, I'm in love with, and I want to read more of her, but it was called One Child by Tori Hayden, and the books that I've only read 2 books by her so far, but they really changed my life. I wanted to be a nurse, and now I want to be a social worker. That's how much this 2 books impacted my life, and it's just awesome.
The book that started all for me was Redeeming Love. That was definitely, I'd read it in middle school, and I was like, okay, I remember crying because it was so good. Seriously, just made me, I was crying so hard. It's such a good book. And then whenever you said we get to choose our own books, I was like, okay, well, great. I've already read the Divergent series. I've already read all these series. I'm like, okay, maybe I should just go back to another one that I really liked. So I was like, I'm going to start Redeeming Love. And then, oh my goodness, I could not stop reading after that. So, and I'm still in the middle of 2 more books. So it's good.
My favorite book that I've read this semester was This Present Darkness, and it totally just changed my view of the world and how I think about things and how I can empathize with people and what they're going through.
I mean, I've read 12 books this
Yeah, I
semester.
finished my first book.
And it's April.
I read a whole entire book over the weekend.
I started the Harry Potter series, or the first two, and Ready Player One, which is awesome, and Fight Club. So,
I mean, I read Winger, Food Girls, and Other Things I Can't Have, and then Standoff. Like, those were the main ones.
Read The Martian, World War Z, The Art of War, and right now I'm on the Zombie Survival Guide. And then I have like three other books I'm gonna read.
Psychology. That's the one I finished.
I've read Elephant Running. I'm on Co-Talker now. It's a good book.
First of all, I've never read more than one book at a time, and I'm in the middle of 3 books right now. So that is insane to me because I used to only read one at a time. So I've read almost 5 books this semester, and I've never read that many in a year. So, like, I just
But-
feel more confident in reading, and I read a lot faster, and I comprehend better too.
I've never really finished a book. I always like skipped through it, and then actually sitting down and reading it all the way through was a lot different.
I was impressed that I don't know, I did it and I didn't hate it, and I was like, oh, maybe this isn't so bad.
How did you feel when you finished your first book?
Good. It was different.
And you went out and bought books after that.
I did, yeah.
What about you, James?
I was kind of surprised I finished it.
I never dreamed of buying a book, but
Yeah, bookstores are like actual places to stop and go now.
With this semester and this school year, I've actually been able to like open myself up to different like genres of books, and so like it's definitely been really fun to do that. I found myself more open and more willing to help, I guess, because some of these books I've read, I'm like, this is tough. Like now I know what it's like to be like inside their head, and so yeah, it's really helped me with other people too.
For me, it was like I really seeked out books that I could try to match to my own story, like my own life story. I found one similar but not the same, which is fine. But like just to read somebody else's story and know that you're not alone is an awesome feeling. So I feel like before this semester, it was really awkward to be like, oh, like no one would just go up to somebody and be like, oh, what are you reading? How is that? Like that was completely weird and awkward for people to do. And now I can just like go up to a random stranger in class or even my best friend and be like, what are you reading?
That's probably something I've asked more this year than I've ever asked is, what are you reading? Like I see people with books and I'm like, hey, what are you reading?
Yeah.
And probably more than I've ever said it in my life. That's
same here.
You like when you walk down the hallways, there's always kids talking about
Right.
random books. Like you could be walking and get a full description of a book, and then you're like, I gotta read that book because it seems so good.
Also, like I've never seen so many people walk down the hallway with their nose engaged into a book instead of a cell phone. Like
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
me. Like reading the first 2 books from Tori Hayden, like I would just walk down the hallway and like not pay attention to where I'm going because of a book.
And if anything, it also got people off their devices. Like I've noticed that
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
aren't zoned into their Chromebooks or into their headphones. And when people aren't zoned into the technology like that, I feel like you can make conversation easier. So
I mean, honestly, when we have reading time I put my phone away. Like it goes in my pocket, and I actually read a book.
It's been a long time since you could say that, huh?
Yeah, it's been a while.
I don't think I've ever wanted to read for an hour and 30 minutes straight.
I know.
Like, a whole, I think it's like 83 minutes that we have in class, and I have many times begged to just read for the whole
Yeah.
hour so I could finish a book or just get deeper into a book because I was so stuck in it and didn't want to think about anything else.
Yeah. I think like I usually go to bed like 9 o'clock, and I stay up to like 12 reading a book at the time.
I read
It's like-
a book called 3 Little Words in like 2 days.
Yeah.
It's gonna
And
be
like find like not even creating more time, just realizing that you have time
Yeah.
to read.
finding time.
I've noticed
Yeah.
a lot of friends like even started reading at home. I do now, but a lot of people would never think of doing that because they could always
Dude,
find
there's-
something better to do.
There's
But I
so
always,
much time to read at home. You can kill books at home.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
in drama class, we have to pick a book and then we have to cut it down to a 10-minute acting piece. And like that's where most of the acting pieces come from, are from books. So when you read that many books, you get a lot more ideas and you can like choose a lot better of a script that way. And it also helps with just any class that you write in. Oh, and math class.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I have a really short attention span. Like, I'm like a fly. It's like every 2 seconds, I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta do this. And I'm like, oh yeah, I can do this. And I'll normally get tasks done because it'll just go in a cycle and I'll go like back and forth between things. But now it's like, I think this has helped me be able just to concentrate on one thing and get it done.
I've always noticed that whenever like I read books, I focus a lot more, and I focus a lot better.
Like just reading so much has really helped me like comprehend things a lot better, or like try to understand things better, because like when you don't understand something in a book, you go back and you read it and you break it down to where you understand it. And like now I do that in other classes too.
Yeah, you get like a new understanding for things after you read a little bit more.
Just like reading, like in general,
Yeah,
you have to read
like
everything.
going through all those museums,
Yeah.
I read way more than I've ever had going
Yeah.
through
Oh
a
yeah,
museum. Like I
like
read most of the papers.
I was
like, wow.
slowing down my friends because I was wanting to
Like,
stop and read everything in the
Yeah.
Holocaust
Yeah.
Museum. Like there'd be giant
We-
paragraphs that people would just kind of skim over. I was wanting to read like word for word, like
Yeah.
soak up as much knowledge as I
Exactly,
could.
especially with World War II. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with it.
I also I really like that we don't really have deadlines for a book. Like we don't have to read a book in
Yeah.
a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
Just when you're done with it, you pick a new book and you just
Yeah.
go on from there.
Yeah.
Just like make sure you log your pages or
Like,
whatever. But
don't have deadlines.
I also feel like you can't really leave out like the learning type books like Fahrenheit 451 and
Yeah.
To Kill a Mockingbird. So I feel like whenever it comes to those books, I feel like building up to reading those books would be better instead of just like
Yeah.
not reading all year and then boom, you have to read To Kill a Mockingbird. Just to get them like someone on the schedule of reading before you throw a book at them that they have to read. Also like, I feel like I would want to read them because
Okay.
like then I was like, oh, we have to read what? And now I'm like, I get to read? Like,
It's like,
this is-
come on, let's read.
what is the
Yeah.
next book? So I feel like now it'd be easier to like have the motivation to read the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree on that one too.
Would you say that reading is important?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, on so many levels. Yes, it's so important.
I wouldn't have said that 4 months ago though.
No.
I
Oh,
wouldn't
definitely
have
not.
said reading's important when I started my senior year.
I wouldn't have said reading is fun. Like,
Yeah,
it's just
like-
so fun to me now.
When you find
Yeah.
an interesting book, you definitely can't get your nose out of it.
Well, any person that makes fun of you for reading,
Yeah.
please.
Mhm.